Hello, everyone. So I'm just gonna get straight to it. So I'm not someone who's gonna say I'm gonna wait until people hop on, because we all know very few people are gonna hop on this live. So this has been on my heart for a while. And I've just been praying about it, and for some reason I feel like now is a good time to talk about it. I may be super emotional, I may be super disconnected because I'm trying so hard not to be emotional. I don't know, but this has just been on my mind and heart a lot recently, and that's grief. And that's probably for obvious reasons. Most, if not all of you, I'm sure, know that my dad passed away over a year and a half ago, and I feel like now I am maybe able to talk more about grief and things that I have realized going through it and that I see other people struggling with. And so I may be emotional on this. I feel like I'm going to be. But I've talked to quite a few people about me doing this, because I just had so many epiphanies and realizations and light bulbs that have gone off, things that I had no idea as far as grief, what that entailed and what that felt like. So I literally have notes here, because knowing myself, I will get on here and I'll be like, blah, 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 blah. And I won't. I won't communicate well. So this may be really short if I get too much like this, and I'll just have to do like a part 2, but I'm going to try. So this, when I was writing out these notes, it was really good because I felt like I got to process, but it also, I kind of realized there were 2 different sections, and one of those sections is for people going through grief. And then my first section is actually, for people who are watching other people grieve. So, as we all know, this has been a crazy last couple of years with COVID and everything. And my dad did not pass away from COVID. And I don't know if I should share all of that or not, how that was. And y'all are free to ask questions. Again, I really doubt there are going to be very many people hopping on and watching this right now. But, if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask. Or if you, if it's too personal, then you can just message me and I'll get back to you. But, so I feel like also led to do this just because a lot of people are watching a lot of people grieve, because there's just been so much death, and just struggle over the last couple of years, to an extreme, I feel like, more than I have ever seen. So, sorry, I'm in the parking garage downtown. This is not how I pictured doing this, but I think it's what I'm supposed to be doing for whatever reason. So here we go. Okay, so some notes. These are kind of like to do's and not to do. So I'm starting with those of you who are watching people grieve and you just don't know what to do. And this is stuff that I had no idea until I started going through it. And I've actually caught myself going to old habits when I'm trying to help people or just be there for them. So for example, what not to say, let me know what I can do. People say that all the time, and I have 1000% been guilty from it. Okay, let me say this also. This is just my take. My brother, my mom may have completely different thoughts. I think that they would agree probably with some of this, but also we lost the same person, but we all lost a different role in our lives. I had a different relationship in some ways than my brother did with my dad. Just me being a daughter and him being a son, and obviously different for my mom to lose her husband versus me losing my father. So just take this as you will, but I'm not speaking for anyone but myself and what I feel like I have noticed and felt. So anyway, so when people say, let me know what I can do, after being through this, and this is just not at all come from a bitter or hurt heart. It just comes from living through it and figuring out what works and what doesn't. So when people say, let me know what I can do, when you are grieving and going through stuff, that is just not helpful. One of those reasons is because it's super overwhelming. So if you ask me, so at the beginning of my grief, or whoever, if you ask someone, hey, just let me know what I can do, that is super passive. That is not active. So, I would suggest, so instead of saying, hey, let me know if you want to go out to dinner, I'm immediately thinking that's probably not going to happen. First of all, I don't want to be a burden, and that's overwhelming. Like, that's decisions that I have to make that I'm just not capable in my grief to make. So instead, say, hey, I'm going to bring you a meal on Thursday, or would you like to go out to dinner? Okay, that's an easy decision. I can either socialize in a public setting and go out to dinner with you, or you're just going to bring dinner and drop it off. That's much easier. So giving them choices, saying, I'm going to do something, but which would you prefer, to me is more helpful. So if you know somebody who is struggling, and maybe instead of saying, hey, let me know what I can do, because that is just too broad of a statement, be active and say, hey, which would you prefer, coffee date or me to bring you coffee? And that is doable. So just food for thought. Another one is, and this one is so funny, and some of this may sound ridiculous or just harsh, and again, I don't mean it that way at all, but this happens all the time. And again, not from a bitter heart. It's just kind of funny to me. So I will be talking to people face to face all the time. And friends and family and all the things. And this happens so often. They ask, well, how's your mom doing? Which is so sweet. And that is a very valid question, obviously, for so many reasons. But it just, they don't ask how I'm doing. And I'm like, do you know that I lost my father and that we were extremely close and he was my hero? And you asked how my mom was doing, but you did not ask how I was doing, which is fine, but it is kind of just a weird, like, it's just weird. And I know that it's not meant hurtfully at all. I know that people don't mean that in a way that is spiteful, or like, it is so precious that they're asking how my mom is doing, because of course she lost her husband, married forever and all the things, but that I'm standing literally right in front of you and you're not asking how I'm doing. It's just one of those, and I know that people are not even like, that's not even a thought, but that's kind of the thing. Like, I lost my hero. I lost my daddy. And that is just, I feel like this is all feeling like, I know it's not the heart of the person, but it feels to me like you don't think my grief is as big as my mom's. And I've talked to my mom about this, so don't think that she's gonna take this a certain way. Like, it's just one of those things that we've just talked about this, like, it's just kind of bizarre. Like, I love that people ask about you, but I'm standing right here, and do you not get that I'm grieving also? So anyway, just be sure if you're talking to somebody that has lost someone, so sweet that you're asking about other family members, but also know that who is standing right in front of you is also most likely grieving. And it's just rough. So anyway, sorry for being emotional, but just try to be real here. So this is funny too. So I've had people say that, well, I don't know whether to bring your dad up, or I don't know whether to talk about this memory that I had, because I don't want you to feel like, I don't want to make you sad, which is also just kind of ironic, because I'm already thinking about my dad, almost guaranteed. I probably thought about him 5 seconds before I met up with you or I saw you. Because I mean, I just have a ton of memories with him, and stuff triggers me all the time. Not in a bad way, but just, I mean, I walk up to my car and I'm like, I remember when my dad and I washed the car. I remember when he was with me when I bought it, or this is the last car that he sat in before he passed. I mean, so like anything. So you bringing up a memory of him or something is actually really healing, because I've heard so many stories about my father that I just have not heard before. And I have actually asked people, hey, tell me a story about my dad, because it's just really, it is oddly comforting and it's super healing. And it's somebody else's perspective. Like, I asked one of his really good friends from Iowa that was at my dad's service when he passed away. And I was like, tell me a story about my dad. And it was, I laughed. It was so great because this was back in high school. And obviously I didn't know my dad back when he was in high school. So all that to say, don't avoid mentioning him or talking about anybody. So again, I say him as in, yes, this is my personal experience, but like, again, if you know somebody who has lost someone, bring them up. You're not causing more pain. You're actually enhancing healing quicker, which may sound weird to you, or if there is that hesitation, then say, hey, is it okay if I mention, like, can I talk about your dad real quick? Or or whoever the person is, can I tell a story about your mom? And that gives that person, like, I'm just not ready to hear that. Or most likely they're going to say, oh my goodness, yes, please share. Cause it's just really cool to hear things that you may not have known about your person. So anyway, don't avoid it. It's just like this weird elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, but that we're totally okay receiving. So this has also been said. People have said, well, I just need to be strong for you. No, I just need you to cry with me. Strong can come later if that's necessary. And being like crying with me or being upset with me is not being weak. That's just, the Bible literally says, weep with those who weep, mourn with those who mourn. And people have totally done that. Again, this is not meant as hurtful. This does not come from hurt at all. This is just, again, light bulbs that have gone off, and things that I've learned. So, you don't have to be strong. Just cry with me or be angry with me for a moment or whatever emotion. I don't need you to be stoic and strong. That comes off a little calloused, I guess, or I don't know. But anyway, strength is not crying. Strength is just being that friend and sharing an emotion, if it's appropriate, that you're feeling as well. So yeah, again, just food for thought. This one is pretty obvious. I put don't be silent, and if you reach out on first, it's something that is extra sweet. Oh, okay. So when I will say that firsts are really hard. So if you know that the first birthday say that last year was my first birthday to not have my dad there. So super sweet to reach out and say, hey, I know this is your first birthday with dad. Maybe wouldn't say that. May not be a big deal because it probably is, but just thinking about you, praying for you, yada, yada, yada. Or if it's the first Christmas or the first Thanksgiving or first Valentine's Day. Which sounds weird, but for me, my dad would always send me flowers and, act like it was from the whole family one. I knew it was totally him doing all the effort. So whatever the firsts are, that it just stings a lot, because you feel it a lot. So if you think about it, that reaching out is not a bad idea. It's just really sweet that you're even realizing that, oh, this is their first yada yada without whoever. So just a good idea. We have gotten through all the firsts, and what a relief. So yeah, it just means a lot when people reach out for the first, and especially when the first anniversary of my dad being in heaven, which yes is something to celebrate, but also is just really tough. That one specifically, when you know that their first year anniversary of passing away is coming, then reaching out for sure is always, it's just extra sweet. Okay, so this has more to do with people that are in grief, which I just think is so, and maybe we're just talking about it more because we feel like it's more prevalent right now. I don't know, but just some realizations. And some of these, again, may sound super harsh or like towards myself, or just like, wow, that's really crazy that you felt that way. Well, it's just how it is. And I can say I'm sorry, but it's just part of going through it and going through the emotions and being honest, because there may have been some times that I seemed off or whatever, and I probably was, and I probably was experiencing an emotion that was not necessarily healthy, but it's just part of grief. So some things that, let's see, random things that will trigger. Okay, random things that will trigger you. That's kind of an obvious one, I feel like, but there are so many random things that, and you would think it's the big things, but here's the difference between the big and the little things. This is what I have processed. To me, the big events that you know are that you're going to miss that person, like you can't even breathe, miss that person, are the things that you can prepare yourself for. So like first Christmas or a wedding that's coming up. Like my dad's never going to be able to dance with me at my wedding if I ever get married. I can try to prepare myself for that emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all the things, but it's the small things that you don't expect, that you don't know are coming, that just like trigger you. And that's when you bust out crying in your car for no apparent reason. So for example, one for me is Taco Bell. Of all the things. So when my dad was sick, he rode with me in this car, and this was at the very beginning of COVID too. So we were all being careful, and I usually took him to run errands because that's just what we did. And I love driving, and he really wanted to get out of the house. And so, I think I went and grabbed some cereal at Brookshire's, and then across the street is Taco Bell. And he was like, do you want to go grab some lunch? And I had already eaten lunch, but of course I was like, yeah, let's go do it. So I drove through and I ordered him what he wanted, and I didn't order myself anything. And he looked at me and he was like, oh, I thought we were gonna eat together. And he was so serious, and I mean, he was so skinny at that point. Anyway, so I was like, okay, well, so when I got to the window, I was like, I'm so sorry, can I have a soft taco, please? And so we ate. I pulled over, we ate in the parking lot. He ate his, I think, beef burrito, and I ate my soft taco, so that we were eating lunch together. And I'm so glad I did that. But the first time I drove through Taco Bell, it was like this crazy trigger, and I just started bawling. And I did not prepare myself for that. I did not know that was coming. So, and then I saw a guy in a white 4Runner with a white button-down shirt, and I didn't see his face, but he was driving with his left hand, with his like 3 fingers barely on the steering wheel, and it immediately reminded me of my dad working. And he would always wear a white button-down dress shirt, and he would always drive that way with his elbow on the car, just like this. And that is so weird, but there is no way you can mentally prepare yourself. So I'm just saying, the weirdest things will trigger you, and that is okay, and that is normal, and you are not crazy. So yeah, just know that those are coming, and that is fine, and you let yourself bawl, and you don't have to explain yourself to anybody unless you want to. But there are random pictures that will show up on my feed. I remember I actually posted a picture of Anna Catherine and my dad, and it was super random, but it was dad making a goofy face, and I just think I was in the Lindale office at Leslie Kane office in Lindale, and I just busted out crying. And thank God nobody was there but Ashley, because I just all of a sudden was not okay. But that's okay. Like, I just had to let myself cry. So, and that's been something too. I don't like crying in front of people. Obviously don't love crying on social media, but it's just, you just have to let yourself. So anyway, random things will trigger you. Sorry, that was a really long explanation for a very simple concept. Get counseling. If you need to get counseling, get it. I don't know why there is still this stigma that if you're, and this is so old school thought, but I still think people struggle with this. If you're a Christian, you should not need counseling. That is a lie from Satan. If you need counseling, then go. I think everybody needs to go through counseling for a while, at least at some point. And there's about to be a wreck that's going to happen in front of me. Okay. So go to counseling. Hash it out. If you need to get your whole family together because you're all struggling with grief, do it. I don't understand why there's a shame in that. Hopefully there is not, but if that is ever a hesitant thought, then go. You should have already been going, probably. So yeah, get counseling. Nothing wrong with that. Get on antidepressants, whatever your counselor is counseling you. If you think it's wisdom and whatever, just do what you need to do in a healthy way, obviously, to get through it. Have something to look forward to. So this one may not be as obvious. So Mom and I have been on several trips, and the family, for our first Christmas, we went to Arizona, the Grand Canyon, and that was the right decision. We did not want to be at home, trying to do our normal traditions for the first Christmas without my dad. And that was, I will say, very smart. Not that you're trying to shove that person out at all. You're just giving yourself some grace and making new memories at a different place. And it's, for us, it was healthy and good. Maybe it's different for whoever. But have something to look forward to, like plan a vacation 3 to 6 months after it happened, and then have another one. I would do 2 trips a year if you can. Something, just something to look forward to. Because it helps keep you going. You're excited about it. You're working for it. And I think it's just a good thing. So have something to look forward to, whatever that is for you. So yeah, a lot of our firsts we did out of town. My dad's anniversary of him being in heaven, my mom and I were in Hawaii with my aunt and my cousin who just lost their husband and father 7 months after we lost my dad. So that's just something I think good to do. Don't have to make a shrine, but wings. Okay, so this was, I kind of had this conversation with one of my sweet friends too. Don't feel you have to make a shrine for the person that you lost. Like, your house does not have to be a memorial, but it is fun to have like little winks to that person, and nobody may notice but y'all, and that's kind of the sweetness in that too. So for example, my mom in our family videos, she was wearing my dad's wedding ring, and nobody else probably even realized that. But if you see on her middle finger, it is I think it was on her right hand, possibly. She was wearing my dad's wedding ring, and it was just really sweet. I think she asked me to hold a picture of him or whatever, and I was like, that just seems a little, I don't know. And I thought it was such a sweet idea that she wore his wedding ring. So little winks towards the person that you lost is just really sweet. I also got some things on Etsy made in my dad's handwriting. I found letters from my dad to my mom, and I kind of put those together, and I got a chick to engrave it basically in wood. And so I have one that's a letter to me from my dad, or a sticky note that I found. I think it says, "Thanks for being such a special daughter. I love you." And then, yeah, Jeanette, thanks for being, and then he signed it Dad. And his handwriting is the coolest. So, and I did the same thing for my brother and sister-in-law, and they have it hung up in their house. So it's just, I don't know, a couple of sweet things that you can do that just, you know about, and maybe other people will notice, but that's not really the point. It's just like, you miss them, you see them, and they're just some kind of winks to them. Not shrines, just like, we love you, we miss you. Season 2. So this one may seem selfish, but I put do what is healthy for you. Allow the season to be a little selfish. You will slow down the process if you don't allow yourself time. So don't feel like you have to be there for every single person. It's kind of like what you're on the airplane and you put on your air mask before you put it on for other people, oxygen mask, whatever. And you're going to slow down the process if you're trying to be strong or be a certain way for other people. So let yourself heal. Say no to things. There's nothing wrong with that, because you will get back into your yes mode, or I can be there for my friends mode. But this is just a very unique time that it is okay to slow down. It's okay to say no. It's okay to be a mess sometimes. And so, yeah, just take some time. It is probably going to be one of the most selfish times in your life, because it kind of has to be, in some ways. Now, of course, there's a balance with that too. But shutting yourself out from the world is not a good idea. However, saying no is okay. And you will get back to feeling like yourself, I think, sooner if you set some healthy boundaries. So that's that. Be honest with people when they ask how you're doing. I think this one's pretty obvious, but don't feel like you can't be honest with people. If people ask you how you're doing, you don't have to say, I'm great. If they asked you, then that's their fault that question wasn't genuine. Obviously, hopefully most of you have people skills. Like, you can read them well enough to, on how far they're willing to listen. So if someone asks, hey, how are you doing? I can say, yeah, I'm really struggling. And I can just leave it at that. Or I can be like, yeah, today stinks because this happened and I really miss my dad and I'm really angry at men right now. Or whatever it is. So be honest if you feel like that's a genuine question and that's safe for you. Read books and listen to podcasts. Read books, listen to podcasts about grief. It will make you feel less crazy, and you will be surprised at how many people have gone through it. My mom has listened to a ton of podcasts. She's listened to a lot over and over and over again. Tony Evans lost a ton of people in his life. He's a pastor. He lost his wife and a lot of other people. Family, I think most of it was family. And I've listened to the podcast too a couple of times, and it's just healing to walk through with other people also how they've been grieving. So listen, read books. You just feel, they just have a lot of good information. Don't make any major changes. Okay, so this one may not be as obvious. I think Mom read a book and this is what this said. So do not make any major changes within your first year, which I find hilarious because my mom shared that at the very beginning of her grief. She was like, I've read that you are not supposed to make any major changes for at least your first year, if not your first 2 years. Because I think the thought of the 20 acres and the house and the 2 rent houses were just completely overwhelming, which yes, and yes, and yes. And so, but she knew not to sell the house or not to move or do any of that within her first year or 2. So having said that, I resigned from my job and I completely resigned from teaching, and I moved to Tyler from the Houston area, and I started a completely different career. However, it was coming, and I knew that, and the Lord made it incredibly obvious. So I say all that to pray about it. And I think especially if you are a wife or a husband, if you can financially not make a huge decision, I would try to not make any major changes. My mom did not move. She did not sell. I'm actually her roommate right now, and that has been the biggest blessing. And I think, she was just super wise in that. Because she could have easily said, I can't be here. I can't take care of this land. I cannot live in this house right now. And I need to be with, she could have made different decisions. And I'm so glad that she didn't, because we still have the land that we have thousands of memories on. We live in the house that I grew up all of my important years in. And anyway, so I would say that is a huge thing. Do not make any major decisions or changes if you can. Important to... also, this one was not obvious to me at all when I first started grieving, but be around people who knew the person that you lost if you can. I did not understand how important that was until going through it. Going to the church that my dad and mom went to, people knowing my dad, so important. Yeah, and maybe that's obvious, but man, it's just so, it's hard being around, it's not hard being around people. I've had to be okay with people not knowing my dad. So obviously, being a realtor, I have met a ton of people, some of them coworkers and a lot of them clients, and I have to be okay with them not understanding how great of a dad I had. And that was really, really tough, because I want them to know how awesome he was. I want them to know what kind of conversations I had, or what kind of relationship I had with him. And it really bothered me at first that they did not get it, but they just won't. Even people that knew my dad still don't, maybe they don't quite know. However, most people had a really good idea of what kind of family we were and how we function and how much we loved Jesus and how close we were. They saw the kind of man my dad was: a servant, a provider, a leader. He was doing things. He just cared for people in ways that, again, I didn't know all the things until I started hearing some stories, because he would do stuff anonymously all the time. Anyway, all that to say, that has been probably the toughest thing for me in some ways, that new people that do not know my father, they can't get it. And I've caught myself trying to explain or trying to say what kind of person he was, and I've had to be like, Jeanette, you got to shut up. Like, it's just something that they won't ever be able to meet him, and I have to be okay with that. And for whatever reason, that has been super, super tough, because I want them to know how awesome he was, and I want them to know how tough it has been to lose him, to lose that kind of quality of person that is just once in a lifetime. But like, I've just had to come to peace with that, and like, they can't get it, and that is not their fault. And I cannot put that pressure on anybody. I know that may sound weird, but that is just something that completely caught me off guard, that I needed to be around people who knew dad, but also that I could not put that burden on other people to understand the kind of person I lost. So, anyway, that may sound very random, but that has been a huge thing to swallow. This is gonna sound really terrible, and I thought about not sharing this, but this is just me being real. So, sympathy is probably, if you are at the beginning of grief, or if you're around somebody that's at the beginning of grief, it is going to be hard for that person most likely to sympathize. So for example, and I don't think this actually happened, so I feel safe to use this example, but say it would be June or July of 2020. My dad passed away June 8th. If you came up to me and tell me that you and your boyfriend broke up, I'm not going to cry about it. Like, you were upset that your boyfriend broke up with you, or that you had to break it off. I lost my dad. He died. Okay. So that's just an example. And I know that sounds heartless and terrible, but that is just something that was kind of numb with me. I just had a really hard time sympathizing with other people, because in my head I was like, you haven't gone through what I've gone through. You haven't lost your dad. And that is not that person's, like, it's just something I had to work through. And now I feel like that numbness has gone away, and I can genuinely sympathize with people. Now, if you're grieving, I would say that have a heart and, try to put yourself in their shoes, but also give yourself some grace that you're just not going to feel it like you are feeling your grief right now. And that's okay. Just be nice, and, just know that will pass. 'Cause it scared me a little bit. I was like, I want to feel with people just like I want people to feel with me. So just know that will go away. And I know that sounds terrible, but you will have a hard time sympathizing, and you're not crazy. it will pass, but just breathe and know that that person probably is not thinking that, oh, yeah, me breaking up with my boyfriend is not a big deal compared to you losing your father. It should probably be a thought, but that's not their intent. They're not trying to be whatever. So just know that that is normal, and it will pass, but just know that you may not be able to sympathize very well. People will stop asking. Yeah, people will probably stop asking after 2 weeks. There have been many times where I've either been in the hospital or something emergent has come up and people ask pretty consistently within the first 2 weeks, and then their life goes on. And that is hard that other people's lives go on. I mean, I'd be driving around, walking, I mean, whatever. And I'm like, your life, if it looks to me so normal, and your life is moving on like normal and mine is not. And that's just not fair. And again, people are living their lives, and that is how it should be. As hard as that sounds, and as much as it stinks, their life goes on, and yours is at what feels like a standstill for a little bit. And so that's why the first are also so important to reach out if you can, just because that lets the people that are grieving know that you have not forgotten. Because yeah, people are really good with the first 2 weeks, and then it just drops off because people have things to do, which is totally understandable and totally fine. But you as the griever need to not take it personally. And if you're watching somebody grieve, put a reminder on your phone. And if you feel like it and if you can, then I would just reach out often. So all of this to say, to wrap this up, I really want to apologize for being emotional, but I'm not going to do it. So to me, the most important thing, and by far the most comforting thing in all of this, is that I 100% know that my dad, my father, is my Heavenly Father. So if you've heard nothing in this whole stupid video, if you don't have the comfort of Christ, I literally don't know how you're going to get through it. Realizing that my dad, I mean, I truly believed up until he took his last breath that the Lord could completely heal him. I know that he has before. I didn't understand why he was not healing my dad, because I really thought it was going to be part of his testimony. Other people truly believe that he was going to be fine because it's Glenn Peterson. He's been through this before, and he went totally back to his normal self and da-da-da-da-da. But if you do not have the surety of heaven, then you are a fool and you are lost. And going through this has just never made me think about heaven and hell more. So if you are not following Christ, and if you don't know where your people are going, then you really need to do a life check, and a spiritual heart check. Because if you are not constantly aware of your eternal future, then you have two choices. You have heaven or you have hell. There is no in between. And I was so tired of people mincing these words or making it lighthearted or not having hard conversations. Because death is real. I have seen it. And it's so ugly. Watching my dad in hospice was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But when I got the phone call from him, when I got the phone call from hospice, and it was on my phone, I answered, and I knew why they were calling. But they were calling obviously to say that your dad has passed, and I got goosebumps all over my body. And this may sound so weird, but I just started smiling because I knew that he was hearing well done, good and faithful servant. And that he was immediately into heaven. There was no in between. He was in this life physically, and then in the next spiritually, he was in heaven. And oh my goodness. And knowing him, he would be so pumped, and he'd be asking Paul all kinds of questions, and he would be somehow create some kind of competition in heaven. Who got the most jewels, like, in your crown. I know without a doubt that my dad is with the Lord. And if you think that I am naive, then you need to check yourself. Because I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I won't say that I have struggled with the Lord or that I have wrestled, because I still don't I really still don't understand why. Because I feel like he had so much more to do, but also why not? Like, he is getting the biggest reward, which is heaven. So if you don't personally know your Lord and Savior, then I'm afraid for you. And I am praying for you. So I am just pleading with you. If you don't know Christ, you have got to figure that out. Ask me questions. Call me. There's nothing that I love more than to have a spiritual conversation. And I care so much for people. And they have no idea. But hopefully they do. But I know I'm rambling at this point. However, you have got to trust Christ as your Savior. And knowing where you're headed is the biggest joy and biggest relief that you can possibly have. Unless you're not headed for heaven. And that should keep you awake at night, and that should make you wrestle. And so that is what I have been praying for people. Just, Lord, keep them awake. Put dreams in their mind when they go to sleep, that they just have got to know you. So if there's anything my father, my earthly dad, would want to know, and would want to happen, is, I know he would say, Jeanette, catch as many people to heaven as possible. And that's not on me, but I pray that the Lord will use me to evangelize and talk to people and share Christ with them, because that was always his goal. It's for people to know Christ. And now that he's experienced heaven, I know without a doubt if he had anything to say to me, I know it would be share Christ, share Christ, share Christ, share Christ. I know that would be what he would say above anything else. And so anyway, I feel like I am rambling at this point, but Christ died. He rose. I believe it. I pray that you do too, or that you will very shortly, because you never know. My dad was healthy on a Thursday, and he was septic on a Friday. And he passed away 3 months later. And I've never felt this kind of peace before, and that I can make it. My worst nightmare was losing my father. And I kind of knew that, but after processing it, I realized that this has been my biggest fear, is losing my dad, the leader of our family. And I am extremely close to everybody else, so just don't take this the wrong way, but I just always had a hard time picturing our family without my dad, and just as I would my mom and my brother and my sister-in-law and everybody. But dad was just a very big presence, as anybody who knew him knows. But that I can get through it is insane to me, because I always pictured myself in the fetal position, not being able to function if I lost anybody from my family. But the only reason why I have been able to function is because of Christ. And don't tell me, well, Jeanette, you're really strong. No. I am who I am because of Christ. And if I did not know him, I would be a completely different person. And if you don't realize that, then again, I love you, but you're being foolish. The Jeanette Nicole that you know is because of me knowing the Lord. If this was not personal to me, I would be a completely different person. I'd be a hot mess, to say the least, and would, yeah, I don't even want to think about it. So, yeah, I truly pray that if you don't know the Lord, then you will soon, and that you'll reach out, because it is by far the most important thing. So anyway, I'm so sorry that this is this long, but it has just been on my heart for a very long time, and I, for some reason, felt like it was time to share. I, again, really want to apologize for being emotional, but I'm going to try not to, just because this is real. And, even though it's been a year and a half, it still hurts like none other, but there is hope, and you will make it through, I believe, with Christ. Again, if you don't know the Lord, good luck. Just because there's just nothing like that peace and that joy, because you can be joyful and sad at the same time. Being happy is completely different. I hate that. I hate that the world is telling us, be happy. Okay. Happiness is so fleeting, and joy is so fulfilling. So anyway, I could go on and on, but all that to say, I hope some of it was helpful. But those are just some helpful hints if you are in grief or if you are watching other people grieve. So anyway, I hope you all have a great Tuesday. So random, almost 12 o'clock. But I truly do love people, and I love Christ. I miss my dad, but, let me know if you have any questions. Y'all probably won't, but know that I'm praying for people's salvation and praying for people in grief, because it's tough, but it can also be strangely beautiful. So I will see y'all later.